Hi there, and welcome to Big Ideas in Cannabis on the Beard Bros Farms Media Network. Big Ideas is a monthly show where we talk about current trends, new tech, and other revolutionary ideas that are sure to impact the future of the cannabis industry. I'm your host, Cassie Tomaselli. I'm the founder and creative director of Tomaselli Media, a boutique content marketing agency that serves cannabis and purpose-driven brands through messaging, social media, and email support, as well as thought leadership and targeted PR. I'm joined today by Mason Walker, who is the CEO of East Fork Cultivars in Oregon. Mason, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks, Cassie. It's good to be here.
So I'm so excited to bring Mason on, who I've known for many years now, because he really knows the meaning of resiliency, which is the theme for our show today. Mason has operated in the Oregon cannabis market now for more than 10 years, and he's certainly seen his share of swings and shifts throughout the evolution of this key Western market. And he's also learned how to adapt accordingly while staying really true to the core values of his company. So before we kind of talk about the business strategies, Mason, can you just share a bit about yourself so our audience can get to know you, as well as share the origin story of East Fork Cultivars?
Sure. I'll start from the beginning. My first career, so to speak, was as a journalist, and I was a newspaper editor when that, I don't know if that's still a job today, but uh, I had a unique position when states started to legalize cannabis. I was on the media side covering that beginning, and I'd always been an entrepreneur. I had side businesses, and I was really inspired by this new creation of a whole brand new industry above ground. Of course, it had been very vibrant underground for many decades. And I was a personal consumer. I've relied on cannabis practically my whole life for my quality of life. I had a traumatic spine injury when I was a teenager, and cannabis has helped me avoid opioids in a real way. And I got the opportunity to jump into the industry formally with the founding by my good friends of East Fork Cultivars. And East Fork Cultivars started about 10 years ago in Oregon, when Oregon was transitioning from being a medical to an adult use state. It was the third state to go adult use when voters voted in 2014. And we started in a humble garden in Southern Oregon, 12 plants carved out of a blackberry bramble. And with a pretty simple concept, we were focused on obtaining, breeding, and growing low THC cannabis plants. And this was way before the CBD trend popped off, thanks to some of the early storytelling, like the Charlotte Figge story of using CBD for seizure control. And at the time, people were a bit skeptical of what we were doing. We were like, why are you growing weed that doesn't get you high? That doesn't make any sense. But we were really focused on growing types of the plant that were therapeutic, had therapeutic benefit, could help people feel better, treat neurological challenges, really explore the intersection of cannabis and wellness. And we were convinced that there were constituents within the plant that had a lot of value beyond the fun component that we all know and love, THC. And our journey has been consistent since then. We still are really focused on low THC cannabis breeding, growing. Though in the last nearly 10 years, we've added a lot of layers on top of that to make a company. Today, we own and operate a 33-acre farm in Southern Oregon. We're very close to the California border. We're about 4 miles north of the California border. So we're right in that region, sort of the Emerald region, so to speak, where craft cannabis is grown in this country. And we're really grateful to be based there. Our heart is still at the farm, though we more recently have added a lot more layers on top of that. So we have extraction program, commercial kitchens. We formulate and manufacture our own branded products, both in the Oregon adult use market as well as the mainstream hemp market, where we sell, I think, to all 50 states, and do some export as well to Europe, Brazil. We're still small. We're still, sort of a family-oriented company. However, we have seen some significant growth in our programs and products in the last few years, and our our main focus is resilience. So I'm excited to get into today's topic and talk about the ways that we've um, incorporated and thought about building resilience in our small business.
Awesome. Thank you so much for giving that background. I appreciate it. And, when we talk about resilience, you really have to have that in the Oregon market in general. So, before we kind of dive into some of your different business lines and talk about that, I really just want to hear how you view today's Oregon cannabis market.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, Oregon's one of the oldest adult use markets in the country. Washington and Colorado were first, and then Oregon and Alaska came shortly thereafter. And now we're up to 25 or 26 adult use states, many more medical states. Um, you know, for all intents and purposes, cannabis is legal in this country now. But it wasn't that long ago that it was exciting and new. And Oregon had some exciting first few years of adult use sales. I think we got a lot of cannabis tourism early on. It was also at a time when Oregon was really on the map for tourism. Portland was a hot city for visitors, for international visitors in particular. And since then, we all anyone in the cannabis industry knows the story since then of mass oversupply, commoditization, sort of the crash out, the fallout of the rise and fall of markets. And Oregon has been at the forefront of that story, largely of being a market that is really challenging for operators. Mind you, it is $1 billion consumer market. The adult use market here has hovered just above or just below $1 billion in consumer spend for the last 4 or 5 years. So it is a significant market. I would say about 2 years ago, if you'd asked me that question, I'd say this is, a hellscape. It's terrible.
Yeah.
And it truly was, and it still is in some ways. However, I do think we are in a new age, I'd say in the last 12 or 18 months, that I'm seeing in other similar states of maturity. I think we really are entering a more stable time. We've lost a lot of good operators. A lot of my friends and peers have gone out of business, been acquired for pennies. There have been some scars along the way, but it does feel more predictable, stable, mature at this point, which I'm really grateful for. And I'm seeing that too in states like Colorado, states like Washington. California is hopefully entering that phase now as well, of a bit more maturity, and the operators that have managed to make it are, just working with each other a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You talked about scars, and I think you guys suffered a big battle scar back in 2020 when Southern Oregon experienced all of those wildfires. Can you share more about the story of what happened there and how you rebuilt your farm afterwards?
Yeah, we had a near miss in 2020. Wildfires have been a major story of the American West for the last decade in particular, and it's going to be a major story moving forward for the next decade as well. But in 2020 in particular, our region got hit by several very large complex fires. There was one called the Slater Fire that started in Northern California, moved up into Oregon, and the map is dramatic. I wish I had a map I could hold up right now where our little hamlet, our little town of Tequilma, Oregon, was completely surrounded by burn area, active fires. We were under a level 3 evacuation. The visibility, you could see maybe 20 feet in front of you for about 10 days. It was very scary. And we hunkered down. We made a decision that, our farm was a safe zone. We had a lot of irrigation, a lot of green grass, a big open space. And the local fire department had come and kind of put a green flag on our driveway saying that, if people in the community couldn't escape, couldn't evacuate, that this would be a relatively safe area to come at our farm, which gave us some confidence to stick around. And we also felt a level of responsibility to help defend our little community of 400 folks there. So we worked on fire lines with fire crews in addition to just hardening and defending our own farm. We managed to make it through. It was we have some scars from that one. It was intense. We were very grateful to not experience fire on our property, or some of our neighbors did. And unfortunately, our crop that year was heavily smoked, that alone nearly was a knockout punch for us, because the following year, 2021, we were out there marketing. We were still largely reliant on flower products, and the majority of our cannabis was very smoky. We did a bunch of tests. We wanted to make sure not to sell a product that was unsafe, so we worked with some research laboratories and a university, and ended up writing a white paper about the impacts of wildfire smoke and ash on cannabis, which I'm really glad we did that work. And that gave us confidence to still sell those products the following year, because we found, negligible or non-important levels of things like volatile organic compounds, VOCs, heavy metals, things like that. We had over an inch of ash, it looked like snow, collect across our farm in a short period of time there, including on all the plants. And so we were really concerned, that it had ruined our entire crop. But we managed to get through and learned a lot of lessons. And I will say, I believe that our community is a lot more fire wise and ready for the next major fire event. So that's a good silver lining. Anytime a community faces an existential threat like that, it really brings the community together and makes it stronger. And that certainly happened for us.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know it happened 4 years ago, but I'm sure for you guys, it feels like just yesterday, experiencing just the dramatic effects of all of that. We were preparing for this call too. We were talking a little bit about some of the persistent challenges like water scarcity and insurance as it relates to the cultivation. So can you touch on that a little bit more?
Yeah, we're in a, I guess, nearly decade drought pattern in the American West. We're still in it, and of course, the effects of climate change leading to hotter summers, heat waves, more extreme weather events. We've seen a lot of different extreme weather events in the last 5 years that our region really hadn't witnessed in the previous several decades. A couple of years ago in June, we had a stretch of 116-degree weather. That was right when all of our plants, we had maybe 13,000 plant starts in our nursery greenhouses. They're all in greenhouses, and that was a scary few days where we thought we might lose our whole nursery stock. Sustained 116-degree temp. We were not expecting that. It had never been seen before. Water scarcity has been a major problem. We're very blessed and lucky. We have water rights dating back to before Oregon was a state in the 1850s. And our water comes from snow runoff from the Siskiyou Mountains of California, from the East Fork of the Illinois River. And we have way more water than we could ever want or need. And we're very blessed in that way. However, many of our peers and friends in nearby regions that are reliant on irrigation districts, especially in the Rogue Valley, which is a major region for cannabis and hemp cultivation, just one valley over from us in Southern Oregon. A lot of our friends there had to purchase water in the past few years, and it's not really a sustainable solution, both economically and environmentally, to grow commercial agriculture with purchased trucked water. It's just not a good idea. Insurance is a new wrinkle for us, and it's not unique to us either. There's been some headlines. Some major insurers, State Farm and the likes, have pulled out of even home insurance markets entirely in the American West due to wildfire risk, and we are certainly subject to that. Our commercial insurance policies for basic loss coverage of our properties are exorbitantly expensive, and it's a lot of trends like that. Access to water, access to insurance, access to the basics that are really, I think, have really put the further squeeze on a lot of Western states cannabis operators, in addition to just oversupplied markets, taxation, regulation, cost. Those other factors that are more recent, that are more related to climate change, are, I think, further squeezing our industry and making it really difficult for operators. And I think it's led to a lot of consolidation and folks going out of business, more so in the last few years than 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that. I mean, it sounds like you guys are in a relatively good position today, but we never know what the future will bring in terms of weather. So it's good to be as prepared as possible. And we were talking a little bit too about resiliency, not just being this idea of physically protecting your business, but also finding new ways to generate income that mitigate against some of these, like you were talking about, market swings and changing regulations and all these other hurdles. And you've really diversified your income streams over the years. So can you talk a little bit about the ways in which you've done that?
Yes. Yeah, I think early on we knew that commercial farming and relying on an annual sun-grown crop for the majority of our revenue and income was not a very resilient approach if we wanted to have our organization, stay in business for a long time. And so we knew that we needed to diversify. That was going to be the basic strategy, and this was from the very beginning. We've really accelerated that, and I'm proud of the work that we've done in the last few years. While I guess in 2022, that was the last year that the majority of our company's revenue came from just the sale of raw plants, that we grew on our farm.
Yeah.
And 2023 marked the first year where we were able to realize that diversification strategy more so. So a couple of the efforts we've undertaken, we're plant breeders. We've been breeding since our founding, at first out of necessity, because low THC cannabis was not very exciting. It wasn't good weed, and it wasn't good. There were no good genetics of high CBD or high CBG varieties that performed well from a farming standpoint, from a handling standpoint, and from a consumer standpoint, either from effects or aroma, all that stuff. So we started breeding out of necessity to kind of create what we knew we wanted to provide, and we've since commercialized it. So we now offer feminized, hybridized commercial seed that we sell to other farmers and home growers. And that's exciting because that while it's an agricultural product, you can make seed and sell it. It doesn't necessarily have to rely on our Southern Oregon farm and climate change and the changing seasons there. That intellectual property we've created, those seed lines that we've put years of work and energy into, can kind of live on and globally, and generate income and for us. The other kind of major thrust for us is adding a layer of consumer packaged goods, building our brand, really becoming a product-led company. And early on, like our first product lines were very farm oriented. So our pre-roll line would be the main one. It's our annual Seasons flower packaged up in a convenient way. That still largely relies on our Seasons crop and the quality and yield of that crop. However, we've recently added line of tinctures, topicals, chocolate bars to the mix that we manufacture in our Portland commercial kitchens. And while that's largely made with our Seasons crop, it's more resilient in that we can't quite grow enough at our own farm to provide for it anyways. So we're purchasing cannabis inputs from our friends and like-minded farmers. And we've built those lines. While they're built on the backbone of our farm, they're not extremely reliant on that farm. So last year was the first year I'm really proud. We kind of tipped the scale where
Yeah.
we got over that hump, and we've added some other layers too, especially on the hemp side. We added an e-commerce store, and I'm sure we can get into that a little bit more. And that's been a really exciting area of growth for us too.
Absolutely. But I want to take a quick moment and talk a little bit about your supply from other farms. And you mentioned specifically that you're looking to other like-minded farmers. I just am curious as to how that vetting process kind of looks like, because you have such a solid set of core values. So maybe you could just share a little bit first about what those core values are for East Fork, and then how you kind of find those partners to supply additional cultivation material.
Yeah, our core values and sort of the principles that our organization is built on are around regenerative agriculture. So just responsible cultivation that uses organic practices and is mindful of resource use and impacts on local community and the broader environment. The other major area is social responsibility. That's responsibility both to our employees, being a good employer, providing good governance for and transparency for our employees, protecting their workers' rights, paying fair wages, and then our communities as well, being involved in local nonprofits, consistently giving and supporting efforts that are improving our, the quality of life for our communities. Those are our core values. Environmental responsibility and social responsibility. They're not groundbreaking, but we take them very seriously. And so when we go to source inputs, cannabis flower and extracts from our partners, we vet them for those two values. And luckily, we have some certifications, third-party certifications that do the heavy lifting for us. So we are on the hemp side of our business, we're USDA organic certified, which ensures a certain level of environmental responsibility, cultivation responsibility in terms of the inputs we use, our resource use, our data tracking and integrity of information. And then we've also been Sun and Earth certified, which is a sort of more all-encompassing certification for cannabis and hemp that was started 6 or 7 years ago. And we've been involved in helping grow that certification. I'm proud to say that it's grown quite a bit in the last few years among adult use farms primarily in California and Oregon, but there are now farms certified in other states too. Sun and Earth looks at both sort of the organic basics of cultivation, but it also adds a layer of community involvement, workers' rights, and social responsibility in a way that just basic organic USDA organic does not. And so when we purchase cannabis from other farms, if it's on the hemp side, we require that they be USDA organic, and if it's on the adult use cannabis side, we require that they be Sun and Earth certified. And we're lucky to have friends that have met those rigorous certifications, and we have built that supply chain locally here and really encouraged it. And so we have those sources, and this year we have, I think, 5 farms that we'll be sourcing from in addition to our own cultivation for our products.
Wow, that's terrific. And yeah, really having that bar of the certifications really helps, I'm sure, to vet those folks. One thing that you had also done, which I thought was super innovative at the time, was develop a hemp bar in the Portland area. And I'd really love to learn more about that and how you were kind of educating the community about how to consume these products in like a more natural, casual setting.
Yeah, hemp bar was an exciting experiment. I would put it 50% in something we did well and 50% in something that didn't go quite right for us. So hemp bar was I would call it a retail concept that we pursued. We opened it in kind of in the depths of COVID, which in retrospect that was we really made it hard for ourselves there. But it was essentially positioned as a mocktail bar or an NA bar. So, picture you walk in just like you're walking to a bar. There's a big, beautiful bar with bottles behind it. There's bar stools. There's little tables. There's a bartender at the bar. You go in and order. And our sort of feature was beverages, craft cocktails that were infused with CBD. We one of our first products we ever made maybe 6 years ago is a sonicated tincture. It's a CBD liquid that you can put into beverages, disperses really well. It's a really neat product. And so we really built this whole concept of hemp bar around that product, and including CBD with a small amount of THC from hemp in something that's incredibly normal, which is, getting a drink with friends, whether that's coffee, tea, or in this case, a mocktail. That part was really fun. It was really fun to kind of open people's mind and normalize cannabis consumption in a way that worked within regulations. In Oregon, we don't have social consumption of adult use cannabis yet, so this was a way for us to have social consumption of cannabis in a public and normalized setting. And that part went really well. We got a lot of media coverage. It was a really neat concept. But food and beverage and running small format retail during a pandemic is really difficult, and it was admittedly way outside of our core competency. We're plant breeders, cultivators first and foremost. So, we learned some hard lessons there. I think it went really well in that we got it to break even. And I think it was a great platform for education and normalization of cannabis. We made the tough decision to close it down last summer of 2023. So it lasted almost exactly 2 years. And we were just faced with a challenging financial year last year. We had to make some cuts, and it just was clear that it was more of a distraction than we could afford to have. So yeah, hemp bar was a great journey. At some point I'd love to bring the concept back, maybe in a different time and place. But we learned some good lessons, and it did help us get serious about direct to consumer relationships, building those relationships with the people that actually consume our products, consume our work, appreciate our work, those end consumers. And we've use those learnings to really build our e-commerce channel, and that's become a nice bright spot and silver lining from when we had to close hemp bar down.
Yeah, definitely. I think all of us in cannabis, as we're forging this new path, get kind of distracted with shiny objects sometimes. But it really
Yep.
did, as you mentioned, align with a lot of your values of educating the consumer and developing that closer relationship. So can you just share a little bit about how you've grown that e-commerce arm? Because you've had it for quite a while, but it's really taken on this new form in the past couple of years. So I'd love to just learn more about that journey.
Yes, yeah. E-commerce on the hemp side of our business has become vital, and it's also exciting because so often in the cannabis industry, if you're an operator in many states, unless you're a retailer, if you're a brand or a service provider or testing lab or whoever you are, you're always one layer removed from the people that are actually enjoying your work and appreciating your work. It makes it really difficult to get feedback to be better. It makes it difficult to find those stories that are so motivating when people have life improving experiences with all this work we're doing. And that was the aha moment for us with hemp bar, having those direct conversations, people literally just walking through our doors over
Yeah.
and over, was really powerful. So we wanted to keep that going, and we had kind of early COVID, we knew we needed a revenue stream, an online revenue stream. So we were lucky, we managed to get on Square's pilot program for payment processing for CBD products. 5 years ago, it was really difficult to have a website that sold CBD products continuously with service providers. And we hung a shingle out then, but we got really serious about, using our e-commerce store as that touch point, that way to receive feedback, that way to have a relationship with end consumers of our products in a more serious and consistent way. Once we shut hemp bar down, that became our main outlet for it. So this last year and a half, we've put a lot of effort and energy into improving our product lines, improving our technology, and really prioritizing that channel for us. And it's been exciting. We receive amazing testimonials. We receive very helpful feedback and often critical feedback on on our products, the way that they work, the way that they're packaged, those kind of things that make us better through our e-commerce channel. And it's a real area of growth for us too. From a business standpoint, it's worth investing in now. And we've all probably seen ads served up more recently of some of the more new fad items. The hemp derived THC edible products in particular have exploded and become ubiquitous. And while we kind of dip our toes in there, we're still staying true to ourselves of low THC cannabis products for sale there too.
Yeah, I'd love to learn a little bit more about how, like, what went into the decision making of deciding to go that direction. Because I know it's something that a lot of even larger multi-state operators are kind of operating in both fields right now too. But you've always kind of been on the hemp cannabinoid side. That's been integral to your story.
Yeah, it's true, and this is changing every day. Unfortunately, it's led to some bitterness and division in the broader cannabis and hemp communities. I think the perfect example would be the Florida rec legalization effort that just got so much money on both the pro and the con side. Recently, it was a very bitter fight. There's a very large hemp-derived THC industry that operates currently within what I would consider loopholes of the Farm Bill, and even exploitations of the Farm Bill outside of what I would consider to be the spirit of that legal hemp realm. There's lots of good operators though too that are realizing that legal hemp is our best path to the full legalization of cannabis in this country, which is very from an activist standpoint, from someone who's been on this movement for practically my whole life. That excites me that we have this other mechanism to normalize and advance the interests of cannabis and the end of the war on drugs in a new way that's not reliant on state by state adult use markets and this fractured environment that we've all come to live in. So I have mixed feelings about it, and I know a lot of my friends and peers in the space have mixed feelings about what's happening with hemp-derived THC, THCA today. I'll say our position where we've landed as longtime operators in both an adult use market and on the hemp cannabinoid side is, again, we've just stayed true to who we are as an organization, which is we're focused on low THC cannabis in general. And so we do sell products that are made with our hemp that have small amounts of THC in them, useful amounts, often 1, 2, 3 milligrams per serving of THC, which for many people is, they can feel. However, we've decided to not pursue just the pure high THC hemp-derived products that many folks are focusing on in those markets. Because it just doesn't feel quite right to us. It doesn't feel in the spirit of the rules, and it feels short-lived maybe with changing state by state regulations. But B, also it's just not true to who we are. We're a low THC cannabis company, so we've decided to stay in that lane, and it's going relatively well. I think that there's a lot of consumers out there that don't have access to adult use markets. And even if they do, they don't have access to more nuanced low THC products. And we're seeing there's an enormous growing segment of people that are looking for that.
Absolutely. I think it's so important to address those customers because the majority of the market just does not. So, one thing we were talking about a little bit is the success you've had with organic marketing practices and how maybe surprising it's been where you found success in the US with your e-commerce business. Can you just tap into that a little bit and share more with us about that?
Yeah. So once we shuttered Hemp Bar on the physical retail concept, realized that we wanted to lean into e-commerce. It meant that we needed to get good at new skills like digital marketing. and that's been a crash course for us and frustrating at times. It's really difficult to grow a e-commerce hemp or cannabis brand because of different restrictions, regulations, service providers, etc. So once you understand that landscape and how to operate in it, we've really leaned in to what I would consider more organic methods. So we don't run any paid ad campaigns on Meta or Google or otherwise. We want to at some point. It's just such a whack-a-mole space right now that it's difficult to have consistent growth that way. What we've decided to do is do a combination of old school and new school things as far as marketing goes. Old school would be email lists building and marketing. And, of course, you're not going to reach a lot of folks. There's just some folks that don't use email or are really good at ignoring email marketing. But we found a lot of engagement with a certain community there. And it allows us to have longer form messaging with folks. We can do more education storytelling through email than you can through, say, a social ad. A TikTok ad or something. And then the other piece that's a little bit more modern is keeping up with SEO, just discoverability. We know that there are people out there that want the products that we make, so we just need to make it easier for them to find them, and that is through storytelling, content writing on our site, not playing any games or gimmicks, trying to jump up one more page on Google results, but because that's a really tough tiger to chase. But you kind of trust that if we put out quality information, descriptive information of what we're doing, that it will be discoverable, and that's really helped. We do make intricate, craft, considered products that are, we put a lot of effort and energy into these products, and so we've decided to just tell that story of how they're made, why they're made, what the selling points and the differentiation points are of them, and that's led to a lot of organic traffic to our e-commerce site, a lot of search traffic, because again, there are folks out there that want what we're making. We just need to help them find it.
Yeah, and you've always been so good at telling that story in consumer education. I'm a reader of your newsletter, and I like it very much. I always learn something from it. So, one thing I wanted to ask you about a little bit too, Mason, was just, if you are going to go into the direct-to-consumer side of things, and you've just been used to this totally different landscape of having to distribute through to a retailer and have that, as we were talking about, that degree of separation from your customers. What might be a piece of advice or two, maybe even outside of marketing, to kind of just help handle the logistics of that entirely new line of business?
Yeah, luckily, I think that there's an emergence of service providers that are specialized in helping folks make this leap. And we've definitely found some support from those service providers, whether it's digital marketing consultants or website hosts, the folks that can fix little things that break with a website, and folks that can help get and maintain a payment processor so you don't lose that. Some of those basics. But more philosophically, it's a new business, I would argue. If you're operating in that B2B space as a brand, and you've built your relationships in the ways that you operate with and get products to retailers or to your distributors, right. It is a completely different business that you have to build to go direct to consumer. It's digital marketing, it's website management and development, it's e-commerce fulfillment. You have to have a packaging and shipping center, all these things. And again, luckily, I think that there's a rise now in service providers, third-party logistics fulfillment services. For instance, 3 years ago when we looked around at the third-party logistics service providers, there weren't any that were willing to ship hemp products, and now there are a lot. So co-manufacturing help, if you want to launch a product that maybe you don't have the facility or the regulations to be able to make yourself under your brand, finding that partner that can make those products for you. Those service providers are out there now. So my advice, if a brand or operator is considering dipping their toes into direct to consumer, if they've been operating in just that B2B brand space for a long time, would be to find a handful of service providers and really lean on those partnerships. Don't try to do it all yourself, because a lot of the problems that you will run into, other people have already run into, figured out, and will have useful advice or services for you. And that's another thing that we've added this year in our sort of octopus strategy of doing a bit of everything. We've actually started offering services for hemp brands, including co-manufacturing and fulfillment services for their finished products. And that's been a learning experience, and another new business that we've created, so to speak, the services arm. But that one's also going well because there are a lot of these companies that have been around, folks like us that have been around for 10 years that see this opportunity to, have a direct consumer relationship, but they need help getting there.
Absolutely. No, that's really terrific advice. Just try not to do it all yourself and try to find partners that will help you and who have been there already and made those mistakes. I'd love to just kind of, as we're starting to wrap up here, hear from you. How do you see East Fork Cultivars in the next, I don't know, maybe 2 to 3 years? I know even looking like 5-10 years is kind of tough in our industry, but even just in the next 2 to 3 years, where do you see the business?
Yeah, I've been reflecting on that a lot lately as we're coming up on our 10-year anniversary as a company. And I think it's also a natural thing to do in the winter, a little introspection and planning. We're we're as committed as we've ever been to the medium to long term. We were built from the very beginning to be part of the movement of normalization of cannabis, incorporation of cannabis into wellness, into mainstream life in a healthy, thoughtful way. And we're still 10 years later as committed as ever to that vision. But it is a long vision. We're still pretty far away from realizing those ideals, and the normalization, the decriminalization, the justice for folks that have been locked up for using the plant. And so I think the next 2, 3, 5 years for us will be to stay the course and keep doing our small part to be part of that movement that continues to normalize, educate, and increase access to this plant that we know and love and rely on. The ways we do that, I'm sure, will evolve just like we've evolved over the last 5 years. I do think we will continue with our general strategy of being very diverse, having diverse offerings, diverse sales channels, services, products, and that's to primarily to be resilient, so we can be around in 5 years and keep contributing to that movement, the bigger movement that we're all involved in. My hope, I guess, would be that we're bigger. We are on a growth trajectory right now. We're still modestly sized. We're a family scale business. We're about 20 employees, and we have plans to increase our scope, both as a brand and an operator in Oregon, and keep investing with the belief that we'll be able to serve more markets elsewhere from our hub, our home here.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I know I can't wait to continue following along the East Fork Cultivars journey, as I have been for basically all my years since I've been in this industry. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on, just on the general theme of resiliency, that we haven't talked about?
Yeah, there's one last thing that's been hot on my mind a lot lately, which is access to capital. If a lot of folks listening to this podcast are operators or want to become operators, cannabis business people, one of the big problems and gaps we have that's underpinning this whole industry is financial basics, access to capital, debt capital, banking services, financial services, and there have been so many efforts. I don't know how many times the safe banking bill has been passed in the House, only to not make it through and get passed. And so, I guess, as someone who's been in this space for 10 years, as unsexy as it is, we really need to fix this problem, and it's up to our industry to fix it. We need access to basic financial services if we want to be a healthy industry that treats each other with respect, and can keep building this movement of legal normal cannabis. And so I guess my ask to folks, the last thing I'll leave you with on this theme of resilience is let's get safe bill done, whatever it takes. We'll continue to lobby on our end and advocate for it on our end. It's not sexy, but it is popular, and it needs to happen. We need access to basic financial services. So hopefully we can get that done here.
Absolutely. With everything our industry contributes to our economy and our communities, it's certainly well past time for that.
Certainly.
Mason, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you just taking the time, sharing your business, sharing your ethics and values, and how you're approaching the next 2+ years in the industry.
Thanks for having me, Cassie, and thanks for having me, Beard Bros. It's been fun. Always fun to chat with you, Cassie, and I look forward to listening to more future episodes of this podcast for some more big ideas.
Thank you so much. So that wraps up episode 2 of Big Ideas in Cannabis. If you're joining us on LinkedIn, thank you so much for being here live. And if you missed part of the discussion or would like to replay parts of this recording, make sure to subscribe on the Beard Bros Farms Media Network on YouTube. Wishing you all very happy holidays and a happy new year, and we'll see you right back here in January.